Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to talk to you about Cisco security. So my name is Stephen Dane, and I lead the APJC security business for Cisco. I'm based in Hong Kong. I've been here running this business now for 6 years, and we've seen a significant change in the security world and Cisco Security's place in this industry. And today, I want to talk to you about how important security is to Korea, to organizations in Korea, and also how important it is to do things differently. So that will be my major objective for today. I really want you to leave thinking how you could potentially do things differently to solve the cybersecurity challenges that we all know today. And I want to talk to you about how Cisco's strategy around a platform-based approach will help you achieve that in the future. So my first slide is really to be sympathetic, to be empathetic with you and the challenges that you have in securing your organizations. Today, the challenge has never been greater. The pressure that you and your teams are under has never been higher. And that's because the expectation of your businesses around digital transformation is so significant. It's the number one thing that your companies are trying to achieve, using technology to be more competitive and to increase productivity and to enable new revenue streams. But we know that that also has a risk. And so managing the risk as you continue to try and develop projects to be more competitive also creates a problem. And that is really why today and the next 5 years, 10 years is so important. Because we know the workforce is even more mobile than ever before. 42% of workers are mobile workers today. We think that will increase. The number of workloads are moving very quickly into clouds. We're operating within a hybrid cloud environment and a multi-cloud environment, and trying to understand where those workloads are and how they interoperate with each other and who has access to those and how we can segment those networks is very challenging. And also in terms of trying to do that on a global scale. So our organizations are operating in global environments. 88% of companies today have 5 or more locations that they need to secure. And so we're seeing massive changes in terms of direct internet access, SD-WAN, and securing that change and transformation as well. So there's an awful lot happening today. And therefore, it's not surprising that this attack landscape continues to evolve. I'll only touch on this briefly, but you can pick out any one of those kind of attack methods, and you could potentially apply that to your organization. There's still a massive concern over phishing. Organizations, CISOs particularly, see that as a very difficult thing to stop, because it's down to us as users to stop doing the wrong thing. We can't have really a technology solution around that. We also see ransomware continuing to have an impact on organizations. And in Korea, we still see that as a potential problem. In 2018, that really blew the whole cyber world wide open. And the impact that it had on factories, particularly, and the downtime that many organizations had as a result, had a huge impact on almost everybody's view on the cybersecurity risk. But the world continues to change, and we think that the challenge is going to get harder, because 5G and more devices coming onto the network will only create a bigger attack vector, more attack vectors and a bigger attack landscape. So if we think it's hard today, we think it's going to get even harder in the future. Now, we took a look at some companies in Asia Pacific and asked them some questions around the challenges that they were seeing when they try to secure their environments. And part of the 1,000 people that we surveyed came from Korea. And I'm going to take you through a number of slides now about the responses that Korean companies gave us. And at the end of that, you'll have a decent picture of where the industry is from a Korea standpoint compared to global and compared to the region in APJC, as we call it. Now, where we started our questioning was around the number of alerts that organizations are dealing with on a daily basis. Now, we took this question as a benchmark at 100,000 alerts daily, which is an incredible number of things to deal with, but this is a daily fact of life, as many of you know. And in Korea, 35% of companies saw alerts of around 100,000 per day. That's against an average globally of 14. Now that tells you that your companies are dealing with a bigger problem in terms of the volume of alerts on a daily basis. That could be down to many reasons. It could be down to fine-tuning of the technologies that you have in place. It could be down to the fact that there's more of South Korea is more of a target potentially than others. But the fact is that organizations are struggling with the number of alerts that they deal with on a daily basis, and that can only create a challenge. So when we look at the next one then, how do you actually deal with that? Korea is good. It's better at dealing with the alerts, but even so, only 40% of those alerts are actually investigated. So out of 100,000 a day, amazingly, you're doing 40,000. And then out of those 40%, only 46% are remediated. So clearly, there's a huge number of threats, potential threats, that are happening on a daily basis that you're simply not able to respond to. That's not a great message if you're trying to have a conversation with a board member on behalf of the security organization. Now, this is a problem worldwide, but we're just looking at Korea, and Korea seemed to be struggling more so. So therefore, the impact that that has on organizations, one way to measure that is downtime. And when you look at this slide, I'll get out of the way. When you look at this slide, you can see that the challenges really from 17 hours and onwards are higher in Korea, and that's where the biggest amount of damage can often take place. But downtime is a real concern and having an impact, and I wonder whether that goes back to the ransomware attacks that took place maybe 18 months or so ago. And not surprisingly, therefore, the costs associated with these attacks are significant and much higher. I mean, 67 versus 31 globally. So really twice as, the impact is twice as much in Korea, twice as many breaches are having an impact of $1 million and over. Now, when we look at why, one of the areas that we focus on as Cisco is how many technologies do organizations use to combat the threat? Because we think that the more technologies you use, the more complicated it is to actually orchestrate a response. And in Korea, in 2018, 34% of companies used 10 or more vendors. But unfortunately, in 2019, that went up to 56, and we think that's going the wrong way. So you're probably guessing what my punchline is, what my solution is, but the more vendors that you use, the more complex the environment, the slower it is for you to be able to respond. And so the last point is that the teams that you work with and that you manage, or maybe you work in, are experiencing significant fatigue. Now, cyber fatigue is a term that we use to define whether you basically just give up, because it's an impossible task. How can you possibly deal with 100,000 alerts a day, only respond to 40%, and of those only really get back on half of those? The pressures are immense, and it's really a challenge. So cyber fatigue is higher in Korea, not surprisingly, compared to globally. We also look at, well, what are the things that are stopping us from getting better? And money always comes up. So in Korea it did as the number one reason, the constraints. Wouldn't you like more money to be able to combat the challenge? I'm sure everybody would say yes. So we do need to get better at making our board, making our C-level executives aware of the risks and aware of the opportunities to actually manage those risks with not only a better plan, but also more money to actually go ahead and execute that plan. The other challenge often and everywhere is the knowledge and understanding that individuals within the SOC environment or the security team have in terms of using the tools or actually deploying the tools to make them effective. So a lack of trained personnel is always something that we as Cisco are aware of and that we and our partners would want to help you with in terms of using the technologies more effectively. So I've spent 10 minutes really setting the scene. And hopefully the message is loud and clear that we are up against an almost impossible task. I say almost. And really what we want to try and help our customers with is change the way that you and we have been solving the problem. The industry has not been very effective at helping you solve this problem from a technology perspective. And so we think that there's a better way of doing things. And when we say that, Cisco is talking about a platform. Now, many of the technology vendors talk about a platform, and I want to try and help you understand what we mean by a platform versus some of the other marketing messages that you may have been reading about. A few people are smiling. Unfortunately, security is a bit like the insurance industry. It's very good at marketing and creating reasons for you to buy things. And Cisco is a vendor, so we're no different in many respects. But we do believe that there is a better way of solving the problem. And so a platform is the way that we think that is the best way to move forward. Now, when we talk about a platform, the first thing you need to think about are the things within that circle. Does my platform cover all of the control points that I need to control? Now, many of you, if you know Cisco's security portfolio, will know that we have a broader platform, a broader set of capabilities than most. We do a lot more than most technology vendors because we cover the endpoint with our advanced malware protection. And we cover the network, obviously, with our firewall and IPS. We have cloud security solutions. We provide visibility and segmentation within the cloud. And we also provide application-based security with tetration now. So it's really important, if you're looking for a platform-based approach to develop your security strategy, that you work with a technology provider that has those bases covered, from endpoint to network to cloud to application. And then some way in the middle of managing and orchestrating those technologies to provide a really effective outcome for you. And surrounding those technology areas, you have to have the best threat intelligence capability that you can buy. And that is what we call Talos, our threat intel. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but that is very important. Talos is the largest threat intelligence capability on the planet that's not governmental. And what it does is continuously update and automate protections to all of our technologies across those 4 control points. And then the final piece at the bottom is around making sure that whatever connects to the network and is trying to access the applications, they are trusted. They're a trusted user. We know who you are, and you're allowed access to this application, and that you're using a trusted device. And that device has the correct security on it to allow you to access what you want to get access to. So those are the platform elements. And we think if you have those things, then you're on to a good start. Now, what does it mean then? What are the benefits to you as an organization if you take this platform-based approach? And I'm going to talk about these 3 things. The experience of using a platform. What does that feel like as a user and an organization? How can we accelerate your success and get you to where you need to be? How can we create a security as an advantage for you in the marketplace, which I think is an ambition that we should all have? And then how can you ensure that in the future going forward you can rely on that organization to be there in 5 years' time and further out as you develop your business? So first, the experience. What do we mean? We mean reducing complexity. As I mentioned earlier, those 10 or more technologies, they create a lot of complexity, and complexity is the enemy of security, I would suggest. The number of threats or attacks that are successful are often because of manual errors, misconfigurations or manual errors, because the technology is complex, because you are trying to train up constantly people to operate 10, 15 technologies. You're trying to keep them and retain them and keep them, working in a happy environment. That's really hard. So there's a really good reason to reduce the number of technologies and make them more simple to operate. That wasn't me, sorry. I don't think, anyway. So yes, so the experience is to simplify and allow automation to actually do a better job. So just some examples here around what it means to your operations by using a platform. The point on the left is around consolidating management. Here we're really thinking about management of multiple network security devices and doing so from a cloud-managed perspective. Okay, so we have firewalls. We have older versions of firewalls, ASAs. We have new firepower threat defense capabilities. We have Meraki, which is also a firewall. We have multiple ways of actually protecting the perimeter, and network security is very complex. So how can we consolidate and help you manage that? We have a cloud-delivered capability. Securing access from anywhere with the mobile workers in mind, really tricky. But you can use a combination of Umbrella to get secure access to the internet. You can use AnyConnect where you need a VPN to connect back into the network. You can use AMP for Endpoint on that device. They're AMP for Endpoint and Umbrella and Duo, in fact, for multi-factor authentication, are all cloud-delivered capabilities that can be delivered and made available and working for you very, very quickly. So cloud-delivered security really does simplify and give you a really swift return on your investment. And we have a great set of capabilities in our portfolio there to help. Another area of simplification is automation. Right now, because of the 100,000 alerts and the manual process of actually working out where something has come in and is it affecting other parts of the network is incredibly manual, and that takes too much time. And when it takes too much time, the risk goes up. So Cisco's focused on integrating these technologies together and providing automation to actually reduce that manual process. We have a capability that we call Cisco Threat Response. We're showing it outside in the booth. Gentlemen down here would be very happy to show you that outside. And that brings together all of our technologies, or many of our technologies together into one window to allow you to very quickly search within your environment to see if you're being affected by malware and then remediate if you are. So automating as much of that response can only really be done with a platform because the technologies share information with each other. And then the final point is around security embedded into the network, and that is secure SD-WAN, and that's using software-defined access and really intent-based networking, the things that you've heard from Cisco for a long time, embedding security into that from a policy perspective, visibility of traffic across the network, and then segmenting that network using software-defined segmentation. So there's a lot there, but that's just to give you a flavor. How can we accelerate your success? Here, we're really talking about a platform that's focused on third-party interoperability. On the right-hand side, Cisco Security's integrated architecture, shares contextual information, event data, threat intelligence data to automate as much as possible. On the left-hand side, it's how we really focus on that third-party interoperability. And an open API approach is fundamental to our ability to be successful there. So when you talk about a platform and when you hear that word platform, then those are the kind of things that you really need to understand in more detail. We're very focused on an open API approach. Many of you will have seen Susie Wee's presentation this morning. And that whole area of DevOps and SecDevOps is fundamental to how we're going to solve the problem going forward. By being open and providing APIs, working with our partners to help you to deliver on that promise of integration, to deliver a better outcome, really that's what it's about going forward. It's not about refreshing a firewall and doing a BMT with a limited amount of budget. It's about doing things differently, and this is where we want to help you really evolve. Here's an example. We work with 200 technology providers. There are 300 tools that we sort of publish in our catalog where we have open API capabilities of sharing information between these technologies. And I suggest that, if there are technologies that you use that you're interested in learning about to see how they work with our platform, then talk to our account teams here and the people that you normally speak to in Cisco to work out whether that makes sense for you. If you have a number of third parties that are really important to you, how could that work with a Cisco platform-based approach? The other thing I think is really important when you're choosing a partner for security and a platform to actually base your strategy on is how do you know what's going to happen in the next few years? So without being rude about some of the competition, there has been a lot of change in the industry around consolidation, and that will continue. The one that's on top of my mind is Symantec. Symantec bought Blue Coat, which was a massive web security and sort of network security company. And now they sort of became more Symantec, and now Symantec are bought by Broadcom, and now they're only focusing on a small number of customers. Big changes. I know it's really hard to sort of decide who to invest in the future, but Cisco is a company that has significant revenues in security and significant commitment to ensure that we'll innovate and continue to invest in this business. I can't say this on stage, but it's more likely that we will be acquiring than being acquired. And so I think that's an important consideration when you look at the future. One way to think about the future is changing your approach to solving the problem. Now, zero trust is a big focus of ours, and you'll hear a lot more about it during the rest of today. It's a different way of thinking about security. When security first started, the internet was open and everybody could access everything. And then we tried to secure it and lock it down from this open, everybody has access to everything, to, well, we need to try and find the needle in the haystack. If you turn that on its head completely and say nobody's allowed access to anything unless you prove to me you are who you say you are, you've got a device that is secure, and that when you connect, you can only connect to certain applications because I have a policy in place that makes sure that that is the only place you can connect to. And every time you do connect, by the way, I'm going to check it's you. I'm not going to assume that once you're inside the network, you can go anywhere. That's too easy because we know credentials get stolen all the time. 80-something% of breaches are because of stolen credentials. Attackers are logging into your network. They're not breaking in anymore. So if they log in once, they can have access to everything if you don't segment. And if you don't have a policy that says, by the way, check every time you connect to an application. So that's really important. Workforce, me and you, connecting to the network, connecting to applications, using multi-factor and using secure posture and checking. Continuous verification. Then workload, super important. We're talking about tetration. Workloads are moving around like crazy. You need to understand and have a view, have visibility of those workloads, and be able to segment within the world of the applications across multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, and private. Workplace is where we've been operating for a long, long time. We call it SD access, and there we're talking about policy and access using ICE, and also Stealth Watch to provide visibility. Super important when you think about IoT kind of devices that are connecting to the network. Profiling and understanding those is very important. So combining those three has allowed us to be nominated as the leader in the Forrester wave of Zero Trust. The first one really to come out from an analyst, and we're up there in the leadership position because we have these three things. We have a very complete Zero Trust story, and this is a strategy, we call it a journey, that organizations will start to embark on, and we would like you to consider us when you're thinking about that. You need to trust a partner that continues to anticipate, and this is my point really about what's going to happen in the future. We have all of these solutions and these technology areas, and we're going to continue to try and anticipate what you need in the future. And you need this threat intelligence capability. Your security is only ever as strong as your ability to detect threats. And Cisco's strategy for many years has been around being the best in the world at threat detection, admittedly not being the best in the world at user interfaces. Other companies maybe are focused on that. Security is it's more important to be better at threat detection. And Talos helps us deliver the best of breed kind of threat detection. And that's because we cover this wide range of technologies and control points, 600 billion emails on a daily basis, 16 billion web requests, 3.4 billion advanced malware queries, 2 million samples of malware we look at, and we block 19.7 billion threats a day. I promise you, nobody else can touch that. That's really important. It feeds all of our technologies every 2 to 3 minutes, updating those technologies with the latest signatures. And we will continue to invest. Here's a list of some of the companies we've bought. The most recent being Duo, because of the importance of identity management going forward. And some of the really important ones, SourceFire was hugely important. I know in Korea, many organizations have taken advantage of the IPS capabilities that we've now built into the firewall. Landcope with Stealth Watch with network traffic analytics, and Observable, which extends that network traffic analytics capability into the cloud. OpenDNS, now called Umbrella, moving very fast into secure internet gateway, so providing CASB capability, firewalling, full web proxy, and obviously DNS protection. We'll continue to look to see where the gaps are and what you need from Cisco in the future, and we'll continue to invest in this space. So just now, wrapping up, the platform is something that can help you deliver end-to-end, really, from assessing a security device before it gets connected, to monitoring traffic on the network and looking for anomalies, to investigations like CTR, which is outside, which I'm sure you'll all go and look at in a minute, if you haven't already, CTR, Cisco Threat Response, to remediation and action. And then also services that our partners and Cisco can provide to help you respond. So the last message, and there was a lot, is that we, as a company, are focusing in these areas. We're integrating this architecture together. We're calling it the platform-based approach, with multi-cloud in mind as you move to the cloud, with threat detection as a key part of our focus, and also embedding security into the network so that we can use the network as a sensor to be really effective for you both within the LAN and also in the wide area network. So I hope in the 30 minutes, with 18 seconds to go, good timing, that I've given you an understanding of where the problem is. The fact that we can't carry on doing the same thing anymore, and that looking at a platform-based approach is a good way to do it. I want you to think longer term about how to solve the problem, and think about working with a partner that can help you do that to protect your organizations. Thank you very much.